And good morning. And we're back. The Monday Morning Ruckus can begin again after a unexpected hiatus. If you saw my video from last night, you have a good idea of what happened. And we'll go deeper into detail of the life that has been Jay Clifton Payne lately. But let's get into the life that is things you might have heard, which is back as of right now on May 1st. 2023, Monday, May 1st. And today, this morning, I'll present to you in about a moment about 10 stories that were the tops for the weekend for latest information, politics, current events, and pop culture. And we want to be your go to supplemental source of news, not necessarily your main source, but some of the things on the sidelines, which is why we call ourselves your news side piece. So we are going to do our best to fill in some gaps, some important stories, and some things that may have been missed in the coverage of the big important stories. Now, as the teaser graphic shows, we're going to talk about Dave Chappelle and 9 other stories of the weekend. These stories were curated by you. You had a chance to, or it's vetted by you, should say. You had a chance to let us know what stories were good because we went all weekend posting stories. And then I went through and pulled 10 from the top 30 stories of the weekend. So not in their particular order, but you'll see those stories. If you have issues with the stories, as you see at the bottom, you can go to our main website. This is a conversationproject.com and learn more about the vetting process. Plus, we'll talk about it once you get after the headlines. Give us about 12, 13, 14 minutes. We'll get through the headlines pretty quickly, we think. And so we'll get to that one. Now, let's get on into this one. As we said, go to our main website for more details. Let's get into the headlines, get back into the swing of things, see how things go. There may be some internet issues. The new studio has not the same internet act levels that we had at the other place. So we're still to get some kinks out, and we'll explain the green screen in a bit as well. But let's get into the stories for today so that we can get on with essentially the day. Starting off with our first story on the day for Monday, May 1st, 2023. And it is this one. 5 dead in Texas shooting. Suspect armed with AR-15 is on the loose. This is one of the original postings from the weekend that we had in the story. And this was essentially 3 days later. It's the same thing we know. One man was shooting from his home, and in the process, 5 people were shot dead. Parents who were trying to protect their children because one man went to the guy's house and asked him to stop shooting his guns because the children were sleeping. And in response, he shot many people. Shooting adults, shooting children, many women shielding their children from being shot by this man. They believe he could be anywhere because they have no idea where he is. Cleveland, Texas is the place where this happened, and as far as they know, he could be anywhere. He's a Mexican national, so they will find out if they can, if he's trying to find a way to Mexico. That's something they suspect could be happening, but unfortunately, we don't know. Let's move on to the next story, and there'll be updates on this one as they're getting more details on who he is and what's going on. Motivation, just guy shooting guns. Federal regulators race to seize and sell First Republic Bank. This has been updated as of a few hours ago, so we'll have this again with the updated story, I'm pretty sure, as we will see what happens. But the federal regulators went over the weekend, were racing to find a buyer for First Republic Bank, which was going to be the third bank and the second largest bank ever to essentially fail. They were given a loan, a floated loan for about $100 million from various other banks to kind of get through the process. They expected that about in 90 days they find a way to figure out what to do with it, most likely sell it. They did it about half the time, so the Fed believes this is a good sign for saving these banks. JP Morgan is supposedly the buyer that's in the updated story. Will probably be what we'll talk about tomorrow. JP Morgan buying most of the assets of this bank. Moving on to story number 3 for this morning. And in our signature story from our teaser graphic, Dave Chappelle's neighbors slam Trump-like comedian for buying properties amid housing shortage. If you've been following the saga that's been Dave Chappelle, being canceled, air quotes, on a lot of different factors. One, people say his jokes aren't funny anymore. Two, people say his business acumen is definitely not funny. What's he doing? He's buying up real estate in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's being compared to Donald Trump by essentially just buying up stuff because it's there. It's relatively cheap, if you believe, and he's got the money to do that. He spent the summer in Yellow Springs, Ohio with his father and bought a 3,150 foot square 3-bedroom house on 39 acres back in 2005. And that's where the shopping spree essentially begins. But essentially, he's just buying up the town. And he's weirdly enough buying up towns and buying up properties, and he's also fighting for people to build low cost housing in basically anywhere he owns property, especially here in Yellow Springs. It's something that, a guy with money has the right to do what he wants to do, and it is kind of what happens. But at the same time, people suspect Dave Chappelle should be the more friendlier, happier type of guy. People who live in Yellow Springs, Ohio, don't believe so, because it seems like Dave Chappelle is just buying up their city. Next story. Super Mario Brothers movie set to become 10th animated film to gross the cross 1 billion in global box office. Much money made by the Super Mario Brothers movie. Yes, the second movie adaptation of Mario and Luigi going through the Mushroom Kingdom and fighting off King Koopa. It is a hilarious movie. Myself and little JJ went to go see it, not so little anymore, went to see it on the opening weekend. And yes, we left the theater singing Peaches, Peaches, Peaches for hours. It was a trip. I suggest you go see this one because adults get just as much out of this as the kids because, of course, the game is like 40 years old. Speaking of movies, let's get into Peter Pan and Wendy. The woke version of Peter Pan and Wendy released this weekend. We'll go into that in a bit of detail. And review bombing bodes ill for Little Mermaid. This is not a story about Peter Pan and Wendy, oddly enough. It's about the Little Mermaid. Now, people are already kicking about the Little Mermaid because, she's got a little a melanin in her skin as opposed to being translucent as some people think she should be because it's a 100-year-old story about mermaids who actually look like ugly sea creatures and technically are, manatees. That being said, Peter Pan and Wendy put a new spin, a modern spin on the story, although it was still set back in the times past the war, older times in aesthetics. Although Wendy was a bit more of a let's say stronger woman, if you will, even though she was a girl who was fighting not to grow up. Peter Pan had a bit more angst to him. There was more sadness in Captain Hook, and oddly enough, the Lost Boys weren't all boys. And Tiger Lily became like the warrior princess of the story. It was an amazing movie. It's a good movie, and it ends not exactly where you think it would end. As my wife, my wife and JJ watched it this weekend. So if you're going to watch it, have an open mind. Remember, this is a different time, and they played out, for the times. And at the same time, feel free to think what you want to and attack it as you want to, because that's what people are doing. Because it's woke Peter Pan, and woke Peter Pan is not looking good for woke Little Mermaid, as people are suspecting more things on that end. Disney has the right to do what they want to do and say what they want to say with the properties that they've bought out, which is a whole nother story. But what we're seeing right now, and may be seeing a lot in the Ron DeSantis fighting with Disneyland, Disney World, Disney themes in general, is the fact that new times, new sensibilities, and you can't say the same things the same way because we should have gotten better, but in some cases, people want us to go back to being worse. I don't know. It's what's going on. Meanwhile, back in the new media age, Jada Pinkett Smith's Red Table Talk canceled as Meta shutters Facebook Watch originals. Now, sources over the weekend said that the Red Table Talk was canceled along with basically everything that goes in the catalog for the Facebook Watch originals. Facebook's attempt to get more people off the Facebook or off the YouTube watching long form stuff, hang out in their website, and so they can save more people, more ads. It not necessarily failed, but turning things around did not work so well for the app for the publisher. Excuse me for a second. Did miss those. So they're canceled along with all of the Facebook Watch originals. I'm not sure exactly how much money this thing was garnering or how many eyeballs were going. There's a lot more for Red Table Talk. More fodder for the blogger community with the things that are being said than anything else, including a lot of stuff that was just deep into detail for the Smith family, being Will, Jada Pinkett, and their kids, and and Jada's mom, what's going on. We got to know a lot, deep details, in some discussions what's going on. And sometimes you find that going, the whole vulnerable route gets a little nasty, gets a little weird, gets a little, and that's essentially what's happened with this one in particular. Now, the rest of the shows are just a casualty of the Facebook watch going away. But this one in particular will have a bit of a sting for people who are both fans and not so much fans of the show, the talk, and the Smiths, to be honest. Ed Sheeran brings guitar to copyright trial, plays Thinking Out Loud for jurors. Ed Sheeran is being sued for a different song because it sounds like Marvin Gaye. Well, actually, it's the song "Think Out Loud." He's because it sounds a lot like Marvin Gaye's background vocals going on. So he came out. He was on trial. He sit before the juror. He pulled out his guitar and he played for the witnesses, "Thinking Out Loud," in a way to kind of fight this. Now, this happened late in the week, and the trial still going on. But we will find out more about this trial as Ed Sheeran being sued by the estate of Marvin Gaye. Also, a recent another suit came up about this suit on Marvin Gaye, and I don't have the notes in it, so I can't go into it. But so essentially, a lot of people are fighting for essentially the rights of music they believe is taken from the stuff. Ed Sheeran, in his video before the trial began, said basically, there's just only so many notes, only so many chords. Essentially, some of them have to sound similar. That's his reasoning for why things sound similar, saying it was not stolen. It's just, it was something in his head that he tweaked with and came to there. I missed a chance to talk about Tucker Carlson being gone. But I do get a chance to talk about Tucker Carlson being gone. His replacement being announced as Lawrence Jones after he was fired by Fox. Lawrence Jones will take over from Tucker Carlson on Monday as Fox News Tonight after Brian Kilmeade's week-long stint in the hot seat. Lawrence will vacate his weekend primetime show, Lawrence Jones Cross Country, to do this. His appointment has been largely positive, but some fans warn him that he simply won't get the viewers, blaming the organization for turning away the big gut time. He's also black. Yeah. He looks forward to his new time slot while Newsmax is lining up a huge bid to lure Tucker to their team because he's other places Tucker can go to. There's One American News, also a loser, happening in the background. So the third party, fourth party, second, third tier stations are trying to get a chance to grab Tucker and make things work. Now, this does not work well for Mr. Chris Cuomo going to Newsmax, as his ratings are still pretty horrible over there, even though his ratings were not so great when he was on facing Hannity and Rachel Maddow on CNN. But the ratings there are bad. Newsmax and OAN both having their issues staying on TV. Are, of course, hoping that a Tucker Carlson edition could help them raise their profile. We shall see. Deion Sanders ashamed of NFL for only drafting one HBCU player. The NFL draft happened over the weekend. Of course, the big time brouhaha going on. And number one, they passed on one of his players from his former team. And number two, essentially looking at the large scale of teams, 31 teams out there to pick people out there. No one picked anyone from an HBCU, which is part of the reason why Dion Sanders essentially left that sort of venue, went to Colorado to go to a bigger venue and play on a lot larger playing field. We will see how this plays out. This is probably the only time you'll actually see this being mentioned, unless you live in the sports world. But it is a big deal with the NHL, with the NFL, that NFL, and the draft and the new millionaires being made and players coming on the scene next year. How that plays out. And finally, we have to come back and talk about Trump a bit, but we're talking specifically about a man named Will Wickerson. He provided 150,000 emails, contracts, and other internal documents to the Securities and Exchange Commission and probers in Florida and New York who are examining Trump's media and technology group. All the stuff they're trying to figure out what to sue Trump on. So he gave a bunch of stuff to. He's a whistleblower for Truth Social, giving the media details from that one. What's he doing now? He's making $16 an hour at Starbucks. Check out the story. I think you'll be a bit interested. So, teaser story for tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, assuming we can do this again one more day, we'll have this story out there to chat about. This teaser story happens to be this. In Vegas, Kanye West deal. The Yeezy shoes, which are pretty much just ugly to be honest. And then Adidas making Kanye a billionaire for the shoes, and then dropping his shoes like a bad habit when Kanye proved to be a Nazi, a black Nazi, if you will. Is it caused issues for Adidas because they lost a lot of money, and the investors want to do something about it. So they're suing Adidas to get some of their money back from the investments. Will this play out well? We shall see. Will we chat this up? We shall see. If you deem this one of the top 15 stories of the day, we'll put it in there. So tomorrow morning, we're going to go through the feeds on Facebook and Twitter, and facebook.com/this is a conversation project, and twitter.com/th_conversation. And we'll go through other stories. We post stories every 50 minutes or so on those feeds. You just go to those feeds and engage in the stories, just like you do anything else. Like them, love them, hate them, share them. Yes, the numbers of Twitter are kind of weird now. And yes, Facebook is for old people, but I'm an old person, so check it out. As you engage in the stories, the engagement score goes up, and we get a better chance of knowing which stories are more engaging per you. This is how you people out there vet the stories. We'll take the top 15 stories. We should get about 30 to 33 or so stories within a day or so, every 50 minutes. We'll take the top 15 stories, we'll pull 8 of those, we'll put them in some sort of order, and I'll repeat them to you tomorrow, just like I did the 10 stories from the weekend there. From the weekend, we'll pull the top 30 stories, pulled 10 stories, and we had about 90 so stories over the weekend to pull from. So 3 days worth of stuff. So that's how that works. So if you want to be a part of that number, you simply go to our feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Now, let's talk about money, because it costs a little bit to get things going here. If you want to stop by our website, this is a conversationproject.com/sponsors. You can see more of our sponsors that help us get things done. You buy from them and their affiliate links, so it costs you nothing extra. We get a couple pennies for bringing in the door. One of the cooler sponsors that's popped up lately is hostage tape. And this is something that people laugh at every time I bring it up. My family says, like, what are you doing? You're trying to kidnap your wife? What's happening? Hostage tape may save your marriage, not because you're going to kidnap anyone, because it helps you breathe. For all the people who put the breathe right strips on their nose because it opens their nose up, how about this? You keep your mouth closed and your nose opens up automatically. Your nose has to be used to breathe. It's a piece of tape. It's basically medical grade tape. It's like an ace bandage. You put it over your mouth, but it's strong, it's safe, it's secure, it feels comfortable. And you can use it not just for, sleeping, because your mouth opens up into the snoring thing. You use it to help you do things like exercise and just walking around. You see the picture there, the guy with the earbud and on his mouth. He's on a walk. He's on a jog. He's doing this thing, and it's forcing him to breathe through his nose, breathing properly for better circulation of air into his body. Breathing through your nose is the best way to do it, and you can do it much better by trying hostage tape. Go to this is a conversationproject.com/hostage tape. Giggle if you want to, but once you try it, you are going to know the truth of what's going on with this great product. Now let's talk about the Conversation Project. Ta-da! The Conversation Project is our home. The website is this. It's theconversationproject.com. And at the Conversation Project, you get things like this, me chatting into video screens or into your earballs if you are listening to the replay for the podcast. And what we give to you is a chance to have conversations on some of the bigger stories and the littler stories, not a real word, out there in the world. We give a chance to get people to literally discuss things of all sorts of topics and just be in the room with people that you would not expect. This is a global thing, so we do a lot of things that pop up that you would not expect to be worldwide stories. I'm sure we'll get some King Charles and some coronation things in there along the week as we prepare for that. But you go to our website and find great things there. The Conversation Project lives at this is theconversationproject.com. You can also find the sponsors. There's a page for partnerships if you want to hook up with us and help us keep things going. And, deeper details on some more of the programs we do. Check us out on our programs and our website at thisistheconversationproject.com. Now, let's back to the fun stuff. May 1st, we always do this stuff after we get through all the chit chat and we talk about the feeds and the sponsors and all that stuff. It is time to celebrate the day it is. May 1st birthday is starting off with Dan Florek, who is 72 years old today. Of course, mostly famous, I would say, from being in Law and Order SVU. Also a main character back in the days for Law and Order, a more or less a sort of bit character along the way, but his role in SVU basically put him, his face, famous on TV. Tim McGraw, the musician, is 56 years old today, and also director Wes Anderson, turning 54 years old on this day today. Today in history, let's go through some facts and things you may remember or may not remember. You probably don't remember 1939. In the May issue of Detective Comics 27, which appeared on newsstands on this day, a new crime fighter, the Batman, debuted. Originally just sort of a guy in a suit, just punching folks in a fast car, turning into the world's greatest detective, and the guy that is all there. The Batman thing to geek out about right now is the fact that the Flash has put out its newest trailer, which did confirm that there is the Ben Affleck Batman and Kevin and the real Batman, the real Batman. Let's just say the real Batman, in a time traveling weirdness going on, happening in the movie. So I might actually go watch that. Not a big fan of DC movies, but might go check that one out. Also, in 1991, Charles Osborne of Anton, Iowa, died in 1997. I'm sorry, died at 97 years of age. And though living a normal life, nobody really knew him for much of anything. He had hiccup continuously every few seconds for 69 years. So over 97 years, the last 69 were filled with hiccups. Trust me, I've been through something like that. It's painful. And back in 2011, President Barack Obama announced the death of terrorist Osama bin Laden. Now, it was the first when he announced it, but it was actually the second because it was, time zones when he actually died. So he actually died technically the day after-ish. Before. Time is weird, just like in the movie of The Flash. So it works like that. So basically died, simultaneously, but it was the next day. Let's move on, shall we? Moving on to today's celebration, we're going to go with Chocolate Parfait Day. Yes, it is May the 1st. Yes, it's May Day, a day where workers across the world do celebrations with demonstrations and parades. Celebrating labor, it's more or less a socialist type thing, or maybe a communist type thing. Big thing in Russia, big thing in France, as of course they're protesting, retirement age moving up 2 years. But we're going to go with something happier because we're happy to be back. So Chocolate Parfait Day is the preferred day we want to celebrate on this May 1st. And finally, one more thing you might not have heard. Did you know human beings may have had a brush with extinction 70,000 years ago? An extensive genetic study suggested that human population at the time was reduced to a small isolated group in Africa, ding, 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 apparently because of drought. A study out of Stanford University estimated that the number of early humans may have shrunk to as low as 2,000, literally 2,000 humans at the time before the numbers began to expand again in the early Stone Age. So with all the species that did not have a chance to make it, I know there's different species of man, if you will. Human beings, who we are, the bipedal, hairless apes, almost did not make it out there. It could have actually been Planet of the Apes, and we could have been their pets. Just think about that for a moment. And think about surviving. Basically just another day. We're back here today. Thank you so much for joining us for the May 1st, Monday, May 1st, 2023 edition of Things You Might Have Heard. Thank you so much for all the well wishes and questions and what the hell's going on messages that I got from you guys while we were away. In this very short version, as we're running out of time here on the back end, a month ago Friday, housed it by a tornado, and then a month ago, or I guess 5 weeks ago today, a month ago today, went into the hospital for some serious issues with health issues, kidney issues. So it's been an interesting April. And oddly enough, the biggest thing I'm really kind of complaining about is the lack of Timberland memes on this May 1st. because I'm that kind of guy. We'll have more discussion in the background of what we went through, we being the family went through, and are still going through, and rebuilding as it is, and some of the things going forward, and how that's actually going to help sort of motivate, get more stuff done. But in the meantime, I want to just kind of thank you for being here. And since we're here, I want to remind you one more time, because you never know what's going on. If you're feeling down, feeling sad, depressed, and feel like things aren't working for you, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988 on your cell phone. You also text them as well. You can go to the website at 988lifeline.org and speak with someone, chat with someone, get information from someone 24/7, English and Spanish. People will be there for you. And with that, we're going to just sort of make our way out of here. I am Jay Cleveland Payne. Thank you so much for being with us for the show. Thank you so much for being with us for the ride and just being a part of the conversation. Wanting to be a part of the conversation is a big thing, big deal, as we are spending less time conversationing, having conversations with people. So I thank you so much for that, and we will see you again very, very, very soon.